Cady is happy to be back at CTC. Previous designs include Babble Lab, Snow White, The Hobbit, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Annie has designed costumes for several Twin Cities theaters and dance companies and currently serves as a chair of the theater department at Normandale Community College.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Live the Glamour Chats. I am here with Annie Cady, and she is going to tell us all about your career. I'm so excited to hear about your whole path. I know you have a lot of interesting facts about yourself. So let's jump right in and let's talk first about what you do and how you got started.
Well, I'm a costume designer, so I design for theater and for dance, mostly in the Twin Cities area. Um, I started basically, I think, with a love of theater. So I, as a little kid, loved telling stories and acting things out. I think I was in my first play when I was in fourth grade, maybe.
Love it.
And yeah, I learned how to sew when I was really young as well. And so I've done many things in theater over the years. When I was in college, I did a lot of acting. I've done some directing. I've done all sorts of things, stage management, but I kind of was always drawn back to costuming. And
Mm.
so, yeah, now what I do mostly, aside from teaching, I'm also a teacher. And so I teach and do costume design, for professional theaters and dance companies.
I love fashion, and I'm always fascinated by what that career is and what it means. Um, how, I mean, just how did you start with that? You know, when you're, I guess, brought into a production, and they give you the storyline, can you guide us through how that even begins? Like, where do you get your visions from, and how do you
Sure.
figure out the character's style?
Sure. Yeah. Well, for theater, it always starts with the script. And so most of the theater that I do has an existing script. Sometimes it's a new play like Milo Imagines the World, which I'm working on right now at the Children's Theater. Or sometimes it's a play that's existed for a long time, like maybe Romeo and Juliet or something like that. And so the director will come in, the director of the piece will come in and we'll have a meeting with all of the designers, not just the costume designer, but scenic and lighting and sound and everybody, and talk about like what's the idea? So where is this place set? Sometimes the script is really specific and has a time period or a place. And sometimes it's a little more up to our
Mm.
imagination. And so I start with the script and I read that multiple times to give me ideas of who the people are, where the time period is that we're set in. And then I go and do visual research from there.
And do you have to, so when you're finding the costumes, are you pulling them from different places? Are you actually creating them? Is it a little bit of both? Like, where do you actually find the physical pieces to
Yeah,
create?
it really depends on the show and the time period. So for some pieces, I might come up with the ideas, and I do costume rendering. So I draw what I want the
Oh,
costumes to look like, and then they might be made. So I did a piece last year that's called The Revolutionists, and that's set during the French
mm,
Revolution. And so I drew what I wanted things to look like based on my research and based on the character and discussion with the team. And then we made most of those costumes where I'd go out and source fabric and bring them back. And that was at the school that I teach at, Normandale Community College. And so I had student workers helping me to create those costumes. And
oh,
then other times it might be thrift store shopping or, shopping online or going to the mall. I was just at the mall the other day for Milo Imagines the World because that's contemporary. So it takes
right.
place in today in New York. And so it's more shopping and then altering the clothes to fit the actors. But still, I come up with the ideas ahead of time and then try to find the clothes to fit the ideas.
Oh, wow. So you actually have like you'll come up with or create the ideas and then have to go into this market and hope that it must be really exciting to find a piece that you create in your head and then like you see it in real life or some
Yeah.
part of it in real life.
Yes, yeah, it is. And sometimes I don't even know exactly what I'm looking for, but I'll
Right.
see something and it fits, or I can change it to make it fit. So yeah, and some theaters I have a lot of people that are working with me. Like there's a
Hmm.
crew and stitchers and people who are helping my designs come to life. And other times I'm kind of a one person show. So it depends on the company I'm working for.
What does that feel like to see, like to be sketching or to have this vision of, an idea and then you're watching it play out in real life, on a stage? I feel like that must be an incredible feeling to see
It
it.
is. Yeah. First dress rehearsal is always the most exciting day for me because even though I'm in all of the fittings. So all the times that the actors come and try things on and we're making alterations. When you see everybody together on stage for the first time, telling the story with the lights and the sound and the set and everything else that goes into it, it's really exciting to see it come together. And the work that people do to help me get my vision on stage. And also theater is such a collaborative art in general. Like the costumes alone don't do anything. You have to have actors, you have to have the lights, everything to make it work.
Yeah, it all has to come together. I feel like that must be such a proud moment because you really do get to see, something so creative put out there. I feel like that side of it, I love fashion so much, and I feel like you're in it so deeply, that feeling must be just amazing because I know just from styling someone it feels good, but then you're really getting to see it from all different aspects, and then having an audience also see your work, because that influences them. I feel like that probably has a big impression, having an audience, I mean, connect with what you're doing, and that tells the story in itself, is the clothing.
Yeah, and my goal is always to tell the story of the character.
Mm.
And so whatever that, how does that character dress, whether it's high fashion or whether it's average every day, or, is it somebody who's had their clothes for a really long time and they're trying to make do, or do they just buy them brand new? All of those things are factors into like what serves the story of the play the best, so that sometimes the audience will notice the costumes a lot, and sometimes it's like they're just really noticing the characters in the story, which is
makes sense.
what my job is. My job is to enhance the story. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite time period that you like to specifically style? Like, do you get very excited about a certain time period?
That's a really hard question. I don't really. I really like doing stuff that kind of riffs on a time period, but doesn't have to stick to the rules.
Got it.
So I like doing stuff that has a little bit of a taste of maybe, like I did a show a few years ago that was a version of Pride and Prejudice. And so it kind of had a Regency air, but the script had specific things like one of the characters was wearing headphones or things like that. And so I could play with contemporary touchstones, but also some of that Regency kind of feeling. And so that was really fun for me. I like to mix things. And even sometimes fantasy and stuff like that is just fun because you can come up with ideas that haven't existed before.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. It's like something so you have to create something out of your own imagination that maybe didn't exist.
And there's always everything kind of references back to something back in time, but it's really fun to not be like bound by the rules of a specific period.
Makes sense. Do you have would you say you have a signature style? If someone was watching one of your pieces, would they say it's specific to you, or do you stay away from that? Or?
Probably not. I don't think I have a really specific style. I tend to lean towards certain colors.
Okay.
Like I tend to be a jewel tone person. Like in life, I like a lot of jewel tones. And so I tend to put them on stage a lot, but I don't think I have a specific style. The advantage of working for a number of different theaters and dance companies, and also working at the college level, is that we do a wide variety of plays. So I do some musicals, I do some serious plays, period pieces, comedies, and so they all have their own different style, which keeps me kind of hopefully limber and able to make changes. Yeah,
that actually ties in perfect because I know that you are a teacher. So how do you balance the two of having that teaching position and then also being this creative on stage? How do you do both?
Well, I'm really fortunate that at Normandale, part of my teaching is also designing costumes for the plays. So where some of the faculty members there might teach a credit, a 5-class load, I usually teach about 2 classes a semester, sometimes 3, and then I design costumes and run the costume shop for that kind of the other portion of my teaching load. So even just with my job at school, I'm able to kind of balance those 2 things. And I teach all theater classes. So the students that are in my classes are all the students who are also in production and working in the costume shop. So we see them all the time. And then I'm able to luckily take on a few freelance jobs. So like my job right now at the Children's Theater, luckily my my schoolwork is flexible enough that
Right.
I'm able to make it work and do some freelance as well.
Oh, that's nice that you have that flexibility a little bit too, that you
Yeah.
don't, you have some freedom. What type of classes do you teaching, or do you teach? I guess you
Well,
mentioned a little
yeah.
bit, yeah.
So mostly I teach in the technical side of theater. So
Okay.
I teach mostly, well, I just taught stage makeup this
Hmm.
morning.
Oh,
Yeah. And I teach costume construction, basic design, which I focus on the costume side of design, drawing and rendering specifically for
hmm.
theater design, introduction to cinema, introduction to theater, some kind of basic classes like that. And then some hands-on things like the students who work on the shows, technical theater practicum, stuff like that.
Have you seen any changes, I guess, over the years from doing that, in the industry from how it started and to now? I mean, now there's so much, I feel like just with social media and a lot more like AI and all these different formats. Are you seeing a difference? Do you feel, good, or I don't know, like a different feeling around certain things? I feel like occasionally, I don't mind some of the changes, but I think also it can affect things because that human touch isn't there. So,
Mhm.
what do you feel?
Yeah, that's a great question. Technology has just changed the way that I do my job a lot.
Okay.
So there's some things that I haven't been able to keep up with. Like I
Hmm.
haven't even explored 3D printing on my fabric and things like
Yes,
that.
yes, yeah.
So I've seen some productions change because of technology, and some of that is maybe in how I communicate. Like I now render my costumes, like when I'm doing my drawings, I do them often digitally instead of
Right.
with
Yeah.
watercolor.
Yeah.
Um, so that has shifted like the details of my job.
Mm.
I think the topics of the shows are also, the
Mm.
theater always is kind of a reflection of society, or it's certainly impacted by what's going on in the world. And I think one of the things about theater that I love so much is that you can't lose the personal
Love that.
human touch, because it's humans on stage.
Yes.
So
I
even if you
love
have
that.
yeah, yeah. Even if you have the high tech lighting, or you have projections, which are used a lot more than they used to be,
Mm.
or, special effects, all that stuff, you still have the actor who's telling the story. So it kind of boils down to that. So I feel really fortunate that I'm still in this industry that is very human centered.
Yeah, when you were talking about that just now, it made me think that, and I started to think like, what else is like that? And it's hard. It's getting like a little harder to find more of that like real life, live human feeling to something.
Mhm.
And I would be interested to see if like theater, I mean, it's been around forever,
Yeah.
and it's it is something that I think people connect with so emotionally that I wonder if there'll be a shift to more of it, because I think we're searching for that more
I
now.
really hope so, because there's certainly been a shift, what now that there's so much content out there to
Mm,
be consumed, and so much that you can get through a computer screen or through
right.
your TV at home or on your phone or whatever. And I think that certainly has been a shift. And theater is an expensive thing to produce sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And so for people to buy a ticket and leave your house and go to see
Right.
something is like a job, it's like a
Yeah,
job.
no.
It's a bigger effort than turning on your TV. But I think that there's like, it's human to crave that connection, to be in the same space. And I think maybe there will be a little pendulum swing. I hope so,
Me
because
too.
I love going to theater, and I love to be with other people as an audience member, experiencing something together. And I think a lot of us are isolated in our homes, and you don't get that same feeling, even if you're watching the same TV show that you can talk
No,
about the next
that
day. It's not the
energy
same.
is
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
Do you feel like you've come across any challenges both in maybe from the teaching side and in the designing side that you have either overcome or you're working through?
Oh, yeah, yes, there's always
I
challenges
know there's
that go
always.
on. Um, oh, let me think of something specific. I mean, I think things like COVID
Mm.
changed things teaching wise. We have a lot of students in college now that spent part of their high school or
Oh,
junior high school
yeah,
years doing at home learning.
right.
And so sometimes that's a harder transition back to in-person
Mm.
classes. Although we offer more online
Uh,
learning opportunities than we used to.
yeah.
So that's a shift. I didn't ever teach online before then, and now sometimes I teach online.
Interesting. Yeah.
So sometimes that's a challenge as our theater numbers, like in terms of just number of students being involved in the program, kind of dipped. And now it's like really high again. We have lots of students interested, which is, makes me super hopeful for the future of theater and also just
Mm,
the students wanting to connect with one another, tell stories, all that stuff.
that's nice. Yeah, that you're
Yeah.
seeing that and that there is maybe a shift back into them feeling more comfortable being in person and
Yeah,
together.
because there was, there were a couple of years that there just wasn't a lot of
Right. I
people.
didn't even think about that. The age, 5 years, 4 or 5 years later, now
Yeah.
they're in college and
Right, right. I'm like, wait a second, I didn't get to do that when I was a little bit younger, and now they get to do it again and have that in person, just real connection. So yeah, that's been a challenge. Yeah.
do you have anything, I guess like that you watch or that you see that you would want that you're like, oh, I would love to style that or do work on that
Oh,
piece?
oh,
I know that's
I
a big
mean,
question.
I know that's a huge question. Um, I have not really thought about like working in TV or film. I really like working in theater, but I love watching shows like
Okay.
Downton Abbey or The Gilded Age
I
or like
love that's
yeah.
the Gilded Age is one I can't wait for the next season to come out.
Yes.
Love it.
I mean, the clothes are amazing. And
Incredible.
I haven't actually seen Wicked on the movie Wicked
Me,
yet, but I've seen many, many um, various different articles and Facebook posts and stuff about the designs and all of
Mm.
the different people that have worked on the details. And some of that is just amazing. So I love getting the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see how it's like, because especially because you know it from that perspective, so you really can understand it different than just, someone hearing about it. You
Yeah.
know what actually happens behind the scenes. Is there anything that goes on that we would be surprised that someone would be surprised by that happens behind the scenes or things that go
Oh.
on that maybe, you know, a mishap or things that you have to, I'm sure there's probably last minute changes or things that go on that you have to be ready for.
Yeah, definitely ready for repairs, things like that
Yes.
have to happen fast. We always have I mean, well, I shouldn't say always, often have understudies, so ready for understudies to come in. And that's, an understudy might be a completely different size and shape,
Right.
original
Yeah.
actor. And so I'm actually sitting in the fitting room at the Children's Theater right now because we have a fitting right after this talk. But we have understudies here that
Mhm.
actually get fit for all the costumes ahead of time. So they might have their own set because
Okay.
the runs are long enough and, they might need to go in. But sometimes it's at school, we don't have
Right.
understudies often. So it's last minute doing stuff like that.
Making adjustments.
Um, I was just telling a story this morning in makeup class about blood on costumes because blood on stage is always a tricky thing. And I did a show when I was in grad school where there were multiple wedding dresses and it was a retelling of a Greek myth and it was a big bloody murder scene and
Mm.
every wedding dress got covered with blood. And so we had to have a whole process backstage where there were garbage cans with soapy water. And as soon as they went off stage, they take their dress off and put it in a garbage can so it could soak and have all the blood come out for the next
Oh,
day.
wow.
Yeah. So sometimes stuff like that just takes a lot of kind of planning and logistics
I
to
was going to
get you
say,
done.
you don't really think about that part of it because it's, you see it as an audience, you see it this one time happen, and we just imagine that's the one time, and you don't realize that the next day or maybe even the next, later that night, you have to have that item or items ready to look
Yes.
new. Wow.
Yes, the people who work backstage are amazing. In the Milo Imagines the World, the show that I'm working at Children's Theater, there are six actors. Two
Mm.
of them play the same character, a sister and brother that are always the same, but then the other four change and they play multiple characters throughout the play. And the play is only about an hour long. And so we have an amazing wardrobe crew that's backstage quick changing them, and our the crew that works in the shop to get the costumes ready is making sure things have velcro and snaps and are
Wow.
rigged in a way that you can put it on really fast and take it off, so you can change everything in like a minute. And so that takes a lot of planning and organization to make it work out.
I can imagine. I know just from watching, like Broadway shows and seeing and how fast they change and everything that they have to do. So I'm sure there's a lot of those type of techniques, Velcro and things that make it very fast to make these changes and a
Yeah.
lot easier, but then still look like it's not necessarily a costume and real clothes.
Yes, exactly. And figuring out ways to maybe make three things into one.
Oh,
So
wow.
your pants are sewn to your top and your vest is fake and your tie has a snap or something, but then
Yeah.
when you put it on, it looks like you're wearing a suit. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I think that
Yeah.
I think it's I feel like it's interesting because you don't really know that part of it, or the audience side doesn't really know that part of it. And the ways that you would make it work just to like put it all together and make it fast or make it happen so that way it looks seamless. But then you
Yeah.
have all these little logistics happening
Yes,
behind the
there's
scenes.
lots of paperwork tracking it all.
I bet. What do you hope like and I think you touched on this a little bit, but in all the productions that you do, what do you hope the audience can like take away from your design and your style when they leave? Like what do you want them to feel?
I really want them to feel whatever the story is about.
Mhm.
So, oftentimes stories kind of have some sort of connection to you. Well, they all have connection to humanity, but I want the audience to maybe think of someone in a different way or to see a story that is similar to their life but gives them a new perspective.
Mhm.
Um, Milo Imagines the World is about a little boy who has everything going on in his imagination, and he sees all these people on the train and he thinks they're a certain way, and then something happens where he discovers somebody that he saw isn't quite what he thought they were, and so it changes his perspective and he realizes that you can't judge a person by what you might think of them on the train. And so my costumes always serve the story, so that really the heart of the story and whatever, as a team and the director and why that story was even chosen to produce at this time is able to come out, so that when the audience is leaving, they have that heart of the story, and they might be thinking about all of the amazing things that they saw. They might love the costumes, but really the story part is the most important to me.
That
Yeah.
makes sense,
Yeah.
definitely. Do you have anything that I know you're working on this probably. How long are you working on this for? Is it new?
We go into tech rehearsals next week and it
Oh,
opens on
okay.
February 8th.
Oh,
So
so
February 8th.
it hasn't even opened yet. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
I was just gonna say, what are you working on next? This is like the
Yeah,
big
this is the big one. My job sort of ends February 8th though, because once the show opens, then the crew takes over and they just do it.
Oh,
So
wow.
my job starts well before they even go into rehearsal. So we started production meetings for this one in July, I think. So we started talking about it and coming up with designs in July. And then I think our designs were maybe due in November. So we had to turn them into the shop and the people who are going to make it happen for us. And then they've been working on it. We've been doing fittings since December. And then now we'll have 2 weeks of technical rehearsals, and then opens on the 8th. And then
So
I'm
that's when,
yeah, I'm kind of done.
yeah, and that's when you'll see your final designs from July come to life.
Exactly, exactly.
Do you have something that you can talk about or that you may be working on or looking into?
Yeah. Well, we're just starting production meetings. I think it's like the week before Milo opens
Hmm.
for Amelie, which we're the musical, which we're doing at Normandale. So that's my next it's going to be a big musical. There's magical moments, and I don't know exactly I haven't really started the design
Yeah.
process yet because that will open in May.
And
So it
it's a
has
little
a little bit.
different, obviously, from what you've been doing. So,
Yeah, French. And
right.
I don't, it's kind of magical realism. So I don't know
Ooh,
exactly where we're going to go with it yet, but I'm
it sounds
excited
fun.
about that.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Ah, this has been such a good conversation. I think, I mean, me personally, I love hearing about this, and I love getting like the in between and a little bit more detail behind what really goes on and someone's work and like you can really tell when you talk to someone like the heart that they have that they put into their work. And I really feel that like from your perspective, this is like the excitement of it. And I hope my audience sees that too. I'm sure that they will. Is there a place that everyone can find you or follow you to see more?
Yeah. I wish I could say yes, it's super easy to follow me, but my portfolio website has lapsed, and so I don't have an easy address to give you. But I would say Annie Cady. It's my name, and
Yeah.
theater, children's theater is the next place I'll be.
I was gonna say, and locally for anyone, I mean, I will put links and everything to where you are locally to see.
Yeah. I mean, Normandale Community College is where
Okay,
I teach. And besides children's theater, the next place I'm working is Ananya Dance Theater. And
perfect.
so we'll be working over the summer with Ananya, and then they have a show that opens in September. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I love this. Thank you, Annie, so much for taking the time today to talk
Yeah,
to
thank you.
everyone. It's really great. I appreciate it. Have a good
Thanks.
day, rest of the
You
day.
too. Bye.